Well, before it gets too hot here in Idaho, I was bored after mowing the yard, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of information on water filters, water pressure regulators, hoses, and 90-degree elbows that you should have these items for your fifth wheel for your freshwater hookup. And if you don't, I'll show you what I've been using and a couple of lesser expensive options. And I'll also show you what, in my opinion, is a flat-out waste of money to buy, and I don't recommend them at all. And so what we have pictured here today is my old dual-stage filter. And you can see the filter on the right is a white sediment filter. And I ordered this with a see-through housing so that I can see that sediment filter inside. And then on the left side is a carbon purification filter. Okay, so I've taken the filters apart so you can see what's inside of it. It's one thing if I talk about it, it's another thing if I talk and show you. So I've taken the sediment filter out, and it's dripping wet because I already had water in it. And you can see the water in the clear housing. And this filter is 8 years old, and I wash this out every time we return from a trip. And you can see just a little bit of a brown color to it over the years. It's not a dirty filter. I just wash this filter in the dishwashing machine, and then I set it in a bucket of bleach and let it sit in that for about a half an hour to sanitize it. I guess you could say that I'm a cheap guy, but I like to get my money's worth out of things, and I'm also spendthrift, so you can rinse these filters out. The last trip we were on, I had to rinse this filter almost every day because the place we were staying at, I don't know what they had done to their water system, but to put it bluntly, it sucked, and it was the worst water I've ever seen. This filter would turn brown reddish in less than 24 hours. The other filter is a carbon purification filter, and I don't know if you can look down and see inside this. We'll go stand out here in the bright light for a minute, and yeah, you can see down inside that filter. It's nice and white and clean, and the exterior of the filter is a carbon 5 micron filter. It's 8 years old. It gets rinsed off. I do not put this one in the dishwasher, and I don't put it in bleach, and it's still doing its filtration job just fine. And the sediment filter is what keeps all of the junk that's coming in from the RV supply that park or wherever you're at. This sediment filter prevents all that crap from getting into your carbon filter. So the placement or arrangement of the order of the filters is important, and I'll show you that when I put this all back together. Okay, we've just about gotten these back together, and I'm simply going to hand tighten the filters just a little bit, and then we're going to lay this over on its side so that you can see what I'm doing. And the filter that you buy, if it's a dual stage or 3-stage, this is 2-stage, one sediment and one purification filter. It'll come with some sort of a filter housing wrench, and you want to use this and just snug these filter bodies onto the housing after you've gotten them in place. And we've got the wrench on there, and we'll hold the filters with my knee, and we're just going to apply just a little bit of a turn, and all I'm doing is snugging it up. And the same thing with this filter, and I'll put my foot on there and hold it, and just a little bit of a snug until it's nice and tight. So that's all you need to do. And you can see the arrangement of the filters. The sediment filter is first coming in. Here's the hose that's going to feed the filters and eventually flow water into the RV. This is my Watts pressure regulator that I've had for 8 years, and it has a pressure reading gauge on the top of it. You don't have to get as expensive a gauge as this one. This Watts gauge is expensive, and I probably paid too much when I bought the thing 8 years ago, but I'm old school. I knew the name Watts, and I was willing to spend a few more bucks to get what I thought would be a pressure regulator that would be reliable and that would work and I wouldn't have any problems. So if you notice on the end of this, I've got the garden sprayer hose hooked on to the end of the output. So here is our feed line coming in from the RV park. Here is my pressure gauge. Here is the regulator assembly where I can adjust the pressure on this. I have mine set at 60, and it's been set at 60 since 2014, and that's what I run on the 2014 Alpine water system. So the pressure regulator feeds the water from the park to the input of my sediment filter, and then the output of the sediment filter is connected to the input of my carbon filtration filter. And then of course the outlet would have a hose going from there up to the fifth wheel city water connection. We'll take a quick peek at the city water connection. I do not recommend hooking your hose directly up to this and then running it down through your access hole to feed the hose out down to your regulators and filters and over to the RV park. I instead recommend using a good quality 90-degree elbow, and this is the one that I use, and it does a good job, and it's not restricted on either end. The radius is nice. This is a 3/4 inch, and I hooked this up to the city water connection. This way, when I install the hose is hanging vertically down. There's no bends, no kinks, and I'm not putting undue strain up on this city water connection on the water panel. This is a piece of junk, and Camco makes some good things. This thing costs $5. I guess it's better than nothing. It is a 90-degree, and it will take the strain off of the hose. However, you can look at this and you can clearly see that it is restricted. So you're restricted. If you buy one of these Camcos like this, made like this, you're restricting the volume of water that's going into the fifth wheel. You're not restricting the pressure, but you're restricting the water volume. So buy the bigger one, and 3/4 inch, or even a half, but 3/4, or even 5/8, whatever your choice happens to be, with garden hose fittings on it and a nice rounded contour on it so that it's not restricted, and you can see the difference in the two, and you'll be happy with this one. And for those of you that are curious about what exact watts pressure regulator unit that I'm using, here is a nice clear picture of the model number on it, and you can see at the bottom end of it, right here, it has an adjustment where I can adjust this with a screwdriver to get the water pressure I want, and then it has a lock nut right here, and I tighten that lock nut down, and then I know that the pressure setting I set is going to be the same going into my Alpine all the time. And so what we've set up here today is I'm going to use this hose nozzle so that I can close the flow off. We have no water turned on right now, and you can see we are at 0 psi. Okay, so we are here at home and on a hot Idaho day, and we're at about 58 psi of water pressure, and so I could adjust it to 60, but because I know the incoming pressure at the house is about 65 off of our community well system, and but we'll leave it set at 58, and that's how I set my pressure with no flow. And once I open this up, which we're going to do, we'll open this nozzle, and you can see that with flow on it, you can actually see, yes, there is water coming out. So this would be like if I had water running into my fifth wheel. Even though I set that pressure at 58 to 60 pounds, you can see now that we're actually delivering about 45 psi of water pressure to the fifth wheel. And I've found that 60 psi setting that I've had with a 45 psi flow through has worked well for us for showering and other things. You could adjust this while it's flowing if you wanted to. And I've adjusted this water pressure regulator down to about 52 psi with no flow, and we'll open the nozzle up and you can see that we're delivering about 40 pounds. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you that the gauge system is a good system. It's a pretty accurate gauge and pretty accurate regulator. So, you know, or not gauge, so watts regulator and gauge is a pretty good system. You probably hear the train going by in the background, and that's rural Idaho for you. And we'll try to give you a better look. That's about 40 psi with the hose opened up just a little bit. I opened up the nozzle on the end of the filter, so we're flowing at 40, and when we shut it off static, we're sitting at about 50, maybe 52 psi. So you want to set your pressure, well, it's what I do, set it with no flow, and then you'll have a drop on it as the water flows through the RV. And I've adjusted mine up with no flow, back up again. We're at about 58 static with no flow, and I'm going to open the hose nozzle up, and there's full open, and we've got about 52, maybe 53 pounds of water pressure that would actually be going to the fifth wheel. So that's where I run mine at, and that's how I set it. And hopefully that'll give you an idea on the water pressure regulator and gauges. And we'll quickly show you what not to buy. This is your typical Walmart or Camping World special, and this is what they call their pressure regulator, and it's got an arrow pointing with the flow of the water that would be coming in from the supply, and you can see through the backside, you can see this is the flow restriction device that they use to restrict the pressure. And then you can look at the outlet side. That's the diameter of the water that's going to be flowing through into your fifth wheel. And I'm not going to measure that, but I'm eyeballing it, and I'm saying that's a 1/4 inch hole. So you've gone from a 5/8 or a 1/2 inch size supply hose like this with a nice big opening on it, and nice good size opening, and you've decreased it all the way down to this. So that's what you're regulating your volume of your water flow going into your RV if you use one of these Camco units. They're better than nothing, but you're going to pay for it with the volume of water that you have coming out of your taps. And I did want to show you, a lot of people complain about the RV hoses and what to use. I bought these hoses, and this is a short section. It's 6 feet long, and you can see it's very flexible. It's gray in color, and I also have a 30-foot section. I use the short section that you see here. I use that to hook my water filter outlet up to the fifth wheel, and my water filter, my dual stage filter for my application, I simply place it underneath the fifth wheel. Short hose feeds up through a 90-degree elbow into the city water connection. This hose does not kink, and in freezing weather at 15 degrees it will roll up just like you see now. This hose is 8 years old, and I bought this from RV Waterworks Supply, I believe it was. Same company I bought the filter. There are lesser costly dual stage filters available now, and any of those would be fine. You just want to get a 2-stage filter, and when you buy the 2-stage filter, make sure that the inlet and outlet connections on it are garden hose connections. And so this is a female garden hose connection, and this is a male garden hose connection, and that's what you want to have on your dual stage or triple stage filter if you go with a triple stage. I'll give you a quick demonstration on how fast I can fill up this 2.5 gallon bucket. We're running right now about, water pressure's down at the house a little bit, but we're running about 42 psi flow through, and as you can see, I probably talked maybe less than 10 seconds, and the bucket is just about filled. Now I'm going to do the same demonstration, and I've taken out my Watts pressure regulator, installed this Camco pressure regulator directly into the dual stage filters, and the water is flowing, and the house pressure is about the same as it was when I had the Watts pressure regulator set up. And I'll show you the Watts again. I've got it sitting here, and if you've noticed, I've been talking for a very good long time now, and this is the difference in the flow of the water. The bucket would have been full with my Watts pressure regulator, and you can clearly see the difference when you use a pressure regulator of the Camco variety, the $6.95 or $8.95 price regulator. That's what's happening to the flow of your water. And we'll even dump this water out so that you can see that again. And that's what we're getting when we use the Camco. And I'll put the Watts back on here and show you the difference in the flow of the water. Okay, we're doing the same test again, and I think you can tell just by the sound of that water. This is with the Watts pressure regulator. We're running about 44 pounds of water pressure, but you can see the bucket is nearing half full, better than half full, and you can tell there's a lot larger volume and better water pressure with a setup such as this in my crude demonstration method versus using this thing. This thing to me is good for one thing, a paperweight, and that's an expensive paperweight at that. But I would go with this if it were me. Not necessarily this particular brand. I paid more for this setup back in 2014 than what you would pay now for a comparable dual stage filter with a sediment and carbon filter. So if you shop around out there on Amazon or some of the other places, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 65 bucks will get you a nice dual stage filter, and then what you spend on the pressure regulator with the gauge is going to be up to you. There are some ones out there, and there is one made by Camco that's not bad. I think it's somewhere in the $40 range, and that might be one you want to explore. But if you want the best, or what I consider the best, then the Watts is hard to beat, but it is pricey. And that's got to be one of the crudest and simplest demonstrations that I've come up with, but boy, it's hot here in Idaho. But I did want to show you folks, I figured visually seeing the difference in a good quality pressure regulator with a good quality hose, a good quality dual stage filter, that you can clearly see the difference. And you know, I like, to me, this is what I like to see. I like to know that I've got water going to that alpine, and I like to know that it's within a safe limit. I just had to do this because I was curious and I wanted to show you. A picture to me is worth 1,000 words. This is with the Camco Wally World Special pressure regulator installed back into the in line with my dual stage filter, and here's the difference in the volume of the water. You can see the difference, and you can hear the difference in the sound of that water going in versus the system with a good pressure regulator on it. So there you go. And one last thing I wanted to mention is when you've returned from a trip and you're done RVing, be sure to take that dual stage filter apart, or whatever kind of water filter that you've got. Take the system apart, clean it, and then let it air dry for a day or two and dry out. If you don't do that, if you leave that thing sit inside the fifth wheel full of water, over a period of time, that stagnant water in there, since there's no standing free chlorine in the water, it is going to start to turn bad on you, and you're going to start getting a buildup of algae and stuff in the water filter, and in turn you're going to get that same buildup in your water lines. And so that's something to me very important to do when you get home, is clean the filters out and let them